Welcome to our final session of Slow and Sweet, our Yin series focusing on rest. In this session today, we will be wrapping everything up by coming to the wall and allowing ourselves to really feel held, finding some refuge in having this support around us, the wall, our props, the floor, and really feeling in our bodies that we don't have to hold ourselves up. So to set up for this class today, I have the short end of my mat to the wall. I have another blanket that I just kind of folded in half and placed over where my body will be, and I'll show you how to kind of measure that out right now. And then if you have a block, it would be really helpful to have this, although you can also do this without the block. So no worries if you don't have one, but I'm gonna take the highest setting of my block and the shortest end of it, and I'm just gonna place it at the very middle of my mat, right up against the wall. And then I'm gonna take my bolster and I'm gonna lean it right up against the wall. So top of my bolster is touching the wall, the bottom of the bolster is touching the floor, and this block right behind here is providing some support so that when we lean into the bolster, it's not going to completely collapse. And if you don't have a block to provide a little bit of support behind your bolster, you could use a thick book. You could use like a small cardboard box, because we're not really going to put weight on it so much as it's just going to provide a little bit of scaffolding, if you will. And then if you notice here, my blanket comes right up to the bolster. Now, this is just a preference of mine. You don't have to have it like this. You don't even have to have the blanket underneath you. But this is just to provide a little bit of extra comfort as we sink into some rest. And then, as always, I like to have an additional blanket or two. You might find that you want to have more than one extra blanket or towel available. And so grab what you need, and I'll meet you here at our little setup. So to begin, you could take this blanket that you have folded up. And so what I did was I folded this up into a square, and then I just folded it in half. I'm going to place this right at the base of my bolster, and then I'm going to sit on it. So if you'd like to join me here, you can. And we'll just find an easy seat, just a comfortable seated shape that allows us to feel supported and held. I'm scooching my body back so that when I lean back, the bolster is there to catch me. And it's kind of this really relaxed, easy, reclined seat with our bolster and our block supporting us. And you have a couple options with this blanket here underneath you. Option one, if you'd like a little bit of coverage, you could just drape this blanket over your lap. Just like that. Or if you'd like a little support underneath your knees to kind of provide some support for your hip flexors so that your knees aren't just completely hanging down, you could kind of roll it up and tuck up the blanket underneath your knees and provide this really comfortably snug support here for your legs. So there is no right or wrong. You could even forego either one of those options, but whatever you decide is welcome. There's no right or wrong here. So as we come into our easy seat, I invite you to take a moment to arrive. shifting from the left side of our brain that was focused on setting up all of the things for our practice and moving into the right side of our brain for a bit more flow. Just feeling. You might scan from the top of your body down into the bottom of your body. Just noticing what you feel, noticing what's present. And then you might scan from the bottom up. As we move into this practice, I offer you a gentle reminder that everything is your choice. This is your practice, your body, your breath. And you never have to do anything you don't want to do. I'm here as a guide and to provide options, but ultimately, you have the final say. And as we're here for the next 7 or so breaths, you might begin to notice the bolster supporting your back. And the blanket underneath you, supporting your hips and your glutes. As the weight of your body settles in to these supports. Perhaps you have an additional blanket either underneath your knees or maybe draped over your lap. Just noticing how that feels. And then finally, you might shift your awareness to your breath. You never have to change your breath. Sometimes it's enough to just notice. And oftentimes, just by noticing the breath, our body naturally changes the rhythm. It is naturally modulating, if you will. So there's no need to force it to change, but it might be helpful to just become aware of it. And if you ever feel a need to take a big breath in and sigh it out, or to yawn, just know that this is your body providing that natural change, the natural adjustment. And you might continue to stay here as long as you like. Or if you're ready, you might begin to allow the chin to drop down toward the chest. Maybe pausing here at center. Or you might rock the head from side to side, providing a gentle stretch in the neck. Taking a few more movements at your own pace. then the next time your head is back to center, you might lift the chin and stretch the front of your neck by drawing the chin up towards the sky. Maybe the wall or the bolster catches the back of your head and you're able to just kind of pause here so that you don't have to hold up the weight of your head, but you can still stretch the front of your neck. One or two more breaths. And then when you're ready, I'll meet you back at center. And then you might bring some awareness to your jaw. If you often clench your jaw, you might notice if you're clenching it now. And if so, that's okay. But here's an opportunity to provide a little bit of relief. And so if you want, you can use your hands to massage into the jaw. So if you're clenching the jaw, you could unclench. Allow your rows of teeth to separate. And then you could begin massaging maybe from behind the ear, down the edge of the back edge of the jaw. Or maybe you massage the sides of the jaws, kind of where your cheeks and jaw meet, or somewhere in there. It really doesn't matter how you do it or where you do it. It's really more of the feel, because only you can feel these muscles. So you know what feels right, what doesn't, and you might just take these next 2 or 3 breaths to provide a little bit of relief for these jaw muscles. Or maybe you prefer massaging your neck if that's somewhere you hold a bit more tension. You choose. One more breath. And then when you feel complete, you could release the hands and just return back to center, taking a little rest in between. Just observing any changes in the body. Throughout this class, you might continue to allow your teeth to separate, giving the jaw a little rest. And it's not like you have to hold your jaw open, it's more just a softening, a releasing of effort. And we'll begin to move into our next shape. And so, if you'd like to join me, you could take your bottom blanket, if you have one, and just unroll it. And then this blanket that you're sitting on can be moved to the side. And we'll begin to take our legs up the wall with this really nice scaffolding that we have here. So we're going to leave the block, leave the bolster, and come to the wall. Sorry, the bolster, that's against the wall. And ease our legs up. And so when we come with our legs to the wall, it's best for our muscles and our connective tissue, in order for them to have a break from effort, to make sure that we can completely release the muscles in the legs and in the hips. And so if you come to the wall and notice that if you completely relax your muscles, that your legs fall off the wall, then you might try scooting a little bit away from the wall. And that's kind of what we have here with the bolster and the block. We're already a little bit further away from the wall. So you might find that where you end up is great for you and you don't need to adjust at all. But if so, you can kind of adjust and see where it's best for your body to be. And as we move into this shape, if you ever want a little bit more grounding, you could take your blanket that's folded up and just place it right over your stomach and over your hips. And it provides just a little bit of weight that helps our nervous system start to down-regulate, start to feel a bit more safe and kind of cocooned in. And so when you get there to where you want to be, we'll take about 20 breaths here to start. If at any time you want to take your eyes open or to leave your eyes open, you absolutely can, especially if you feel that maybe you're having a hard time settling in. Sometimes it helps to just keep the eyes open for a moment. You might allow them to wander at first, but then eventually bring them to a still, unmoving spot ahead of you. And just allow the eyes to rest there. Or if you prefer to have the eyes closed, that's great too. And as our jaw is separated, allowing the jaw muscles to soften and release, you might notice your tongue feels a little bit awkward, or you might not, but if you do, you might allow the tongue to float to the roof of the mouth, and there's a natural suctioning that takes place that suctions the tongue to the roof of the mouth and prevents it from falling back when we're lying down. You might start to feel your body growing a bit heavier, starting to settle into the floor beneath you, and the bolster and wall supporting your legs. This is your opportunity, this is your time to let go, to not have to strive, to not have to hold on. This is your time. About 3 or 4 more breaths here. And for our next shape, we'll be coming into a supported butterfly pose. And just know that if ever this shape does not feel welcome to your body, you don't have to take it, you don't have to be in it. You are welcome to stay exactly where you are. If the legs up the wall pose is nourishing you, you don't have to rush away from this. But if you would like to join me in butterfly pose, then you could begin to add a little bit of movement into your feet, maybe stretching through the ankles and the toes. And then you could allow your feet to come down to the bolster and allow the soles of the feet to come together as the knees fall open to the side. And your heels might separate a little bit, but that's okay because we don't have to keep the soles of the feet completely touching and together the whole time. You do want some form of your feet touching or at least relatively close to each other. But we also want to be able to let our muscles go, to allow the tissue and our ligaments and our tendons to just ease into the pose. And so another option is to take your blanket, and if you'd like, you could just drape it over your lap to continue to provide a sense of grounding and safety. And we're not going to be here as long because this is a very opening posture. So I'd say about 10 breaths. However, just know that you can stay here longer than 10 breaths, or you can leave sooner than 10 breaths. There's nothing saying that you have to stay here the exact amount of time that I do, or that you have to wait for my permission to leave the pose. You never need anyone's permission other than your own. And if you notice that being in this pose causes your body to return back to tension, you might just give yourself permission to leave it. Or if this pose feels very welcome, very nourishing, then that's okay too. We'll take another 3 breaths here. And then if you're ready to leave this shape, using your hands on either side of your knees, you could draw yourself back in. And maybe even hug the knees in toward the chest. Allowing your arms and your hands to do the work of holding you in so that your bottom half of the body might be able to just feel held, to receive the support that your arms are offering. And then when you're ready, you could extend the legs back up the wall. Just for a few breaths. Last one. Okay. For our next shape, we'll be coming into cow face pose, also known as Gomukhasana. And we have a couple options here. So what we're going to do is take our right leg. I mean, you could do either side really, but I'm going to tell you which side I'm starting on so that I don't get my lefts and my rights confused. So I'm going to take my right leg and I'm going to cross it over my left. And then I'm going to allow my ankles to, my knees to bend and my ankles to come to either side of the bolster. And I'm just going to settle in my knees toward the bolster. So it's kind of like you're sitting in a chair, like when you cross your legs and you're sitting in a chair. And the bolster is nice here because it's providing some support to separate the ankles. Now, this might feel like a really great place to be. If this is like, yeah, this is the sweet spot, then cool, option to stay here. If you feel like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be feeling in this pose, another option is to reach for your ankles or your shins and draw them in toward you, toward your chest. Now, this is going to significantly increase the stretch in your body. And also, it takes way more effort. It's not as relaxing. So just know that you don't have to always feel this big stretch. You don't always have to feel this intense opening. Sometimes it's enough to just come halfway. It can be enough to just allow your body to be supported here. And even though it might not feel like you're feeling anything, your body is still moving into this shape. And you're still receiving the benefits. With most of the benefits being in rest and letting go, so that the body can sink into a deeper connective tissue stretch rather than finding these big stretches in our muscles. You know your body best. And I welcome you to be here for another 10 to 12 breaths. Three more breaths. Starting to find completion here. If you do feel complete, because if not, you can always choose to stay longer. But you might begin to unravel the legs and allow your legs to go back up the wall. Stretching out. Before we take the next side. You also have options with your arms. So if your arms have been down at your sides for the first part of this session, that's totally fine. That's a great place to be, and you might even choose to stay there. But if you are looking for some sensation in your arms or your chest, I'll offer you another choice here when we come into cow face pose on this other side. So if you're ready for the next side, you could cross your left leg, if this is the other side for you, over your right, and allow your body to sink in. An option with the arms is one, you could simply just reach the arms up overhead and settle in. Just allowing the shoulders and the arms to stretch up and overhead. And it's not like you have to keep reaching or straining or pulling, but you can just allow them to soften into the floor, allow the elbows to naturally bend where they want. A second option for your arms is to take cactus arms, and that's just to create like a goal post. So your elbows bend and you create like a 90-degree angle in both of your elbows. And you might even feel a welcome sensation across your chest, across your arms. So 3 options. You can leave the arms wherever you have them, wherever feels welcome. You could stretch the arms up overhead, or you might take cactus arms. As we settle in here for another 10 or 12 rounds of breath. And I'd like to read to you a little excerpt from Octavia Raheem's book titled Pause, Rest, Be. And she writes, "If we don't know how to be with ourselves without distractions and multitasking, how can we be with anyone else?" Can you be with yourself right now? Just as you are. You don't need anything else. You don't need to accomplish anything else. You don't have to do. You can just be without feeling the need to hurry or rush or accomplish this being so that you could go do something else. It sounds so simple, but it truly is a practice. You are allowed, you are welcome to just be. And we'll start to find completion on this side. Whenever you're ready to unravel the legs, you might hug the knees in toward the chest. Just taking a little pause in between. And then if you're ready to stretch the legs up over your bolster and toward the wall, option to do so. Maybe even planting your feet on your bolster, and if you'd like to just sway the knees from side to side, giving your lower back a little massage, that is also an option. And we'll take 2 more shapes before we move into our time of guided meditation and final rest. And the first one being a reclined pigeon. And so with our legs extended up the wall, you can decide which leg you'd like to start on. I'm going to start on my right side. And keeping my left leg extended, I'm going to bend my right knee and cross my right ankle, my right leg, over the top of my left leg. And then I'm going to start to bend my left knee. And you have 2 options here. You could either leave your left foot planted on the wall, or you could plant your left foot on the bolster. Just note that if you plant your left foot on the bolster, it's going to bring your legs closer in toward your chest, which is going to increase the amount of sensation you might feel. So depending on what you need in your body today in this moment, please decide for yourself what is most appropriate. And then you might choose your arm placement. Maybe it's down at your side, maybe it's up overhead, maybe it's cactus arms, maybe it's your hands resting on your stomach. And if you feel like it's safe to settle in a little bit deeper, I welcome you to take an inhale through the nose with me and exhale through the mouth. And I invite you to be here for the next 8 breaths. So 8 inhales and 8 exhales. If you're ready, you could begin to find completion here. Perhaps extending your left leg out straight, and then allowing your right leg to also extend out, coming back up to the wall. And then we'll take it on the other side, switching legs, and bending into your bottom leg whenever you're ready. You might plant your foot on the wall, or you might decide to plant your foot on the bolster. And then again, your choice of hand placement, arm placement. And another 8 breaths or so. allowing your breath to continue moving at its own natural pace. Perhaps using your exhales to invite your muscles to soften, to grow even heavier. As we take another 3 rounds of breath here. Last one. If you're ready, to extend your bottom leg up the wall, followed by your top. And just pause here for a couple breaths for some integration. And then we'll begin to move away from the wall. And if you're ready for that, you could roll onto one side. And then using your arms, press yourself up, moving slowly, taking your time. We'll be taking our bolster and laying it across our mat. You can move your block. You can leave it here, or you can move it to the side if you want. It won't really be in the way. But we'll take our bolster here. And we'll scooch up close to the bolster, and then taking our hands back behind us, you can go ahead and sit on top of the bolster. So we're going to be coming to a supported bridge pose, and you have a couple options here. So option 1 is to settle into the bolster and then go ahead and lean on back. And if you feel like, oh, I kind of need to wiggle, I need to adjust a little bit, once you lie back on the floor, you could even pick your knees up and kind of sway your hips from side to side, just adjusting how your body is resting on the bolster. And then option 1 is to plant your feet on the floor. This is providing just a nice, gentle stretch through the front of the hip. Option 2 is to extend your legs out nice and long, just bringing your heels to the ground. Now feel into your body and notice which one you prefer. And if you have your legs extended and that feels like, like it's kind of pinching your lower back, or it's just creating some tension in your lower back, but you still want the sensation across the tops of your hips, then you might draw one knee in toward your chest and just hold it there while your other leg stays out long. And then notice if that helps your lower back. And we'll just hang out here for another 18 breaths or so. And if you have one leg pulled in toward the chest and the other one out long, I'll let you know when we're halfway through to switch them out. And if you would like to switch your legs out, you could pull your other knee in and allow your other leg to go out long. Eight more breaths here. Last breath in and out. Take your time. And if you're ready to move out of this shape, you might plant your feet on the floor if they aren't already. And then pressing your feet into the floor, you could lift your hips just enough to press your bolster from underneath you and allow the hips to settle back in. Just kind of pausing here for a second. Giving your back a moment to settle back into neutral because we were in a back bend. And then as you're here settling back into neutral, you might consider and think about how you would like to take your final resting pose. So you might choose to stay right here, resting on your back, maybe extending your legs out or even keeping the feet planted. Other options are to rest on your stomach or your side, or you can return back to the very first shape of class, which was resting with the bolster against the wall and your back against the bolster in a seated shape. So wherever you'd like to be, you might begin to make your way there now. Adjusting your props so that you feel as supported as possible. And as we move into this time of rest, I offer you a guided meditation to start. Once we get set up. And I encourage you to be very, decadent with this Shavasana, very supportive, and really allow your body to feel super contained and cocooned in a way that allows you to let go into a very soft, deep rest. And so you might be there already, and if you're not, that's okay. You can continue to wiggle and adjust your way into it. And then when you arrive, you are invited to decide if you'd like to keep your eyes open or closed. And you can always change your mind at any time. Allowing your breath to flow in and out at whatever pace feels right to you. You might scan through your body and notice if there's any area, any muscle that is continuing to hold on. And with your exhale, perhaps allowing this area to let go, even if it's not 100%, even if it's just 50%. That's okay. We don't have to rush. Our body can take lots of time. And this very short meditation I offer to you today is from Octavia Raheem's book that I referenced earlier. As you breathe, you might begin to feel your breath take refuge in your body, while also providing your body refuge. And I invite you to bring to mind someone or something or some place that brings you a sense of refuge or being held. It might be a person, might be a thing, might be a place. And then for a few breaths, you might hold the image of that person or that thing in your mind. Notice what this feels like. Notice how your body responds to this image of refuge. This image of being held, either in a very literal physical sense or maybe in a more metaphorical sense. Notice how your body responds. For another few breaths here. And then let the image go and allow yourself to be within the essence that that image provided. Refuge. And I'll be quiet now for the remainder of our resting time, our Shavasana, for the next 3 or 4 minutes. Just know that I'll keep track of the time and I'll let you know when those minutes are complete. You might choose to stay in this time of rest even longer, which I encourage you to do if that is something that your body is asking for. You don't have to rush away. You can stay here as long as you like. And if you are ready to make your way out of Shavasana, you can take your time doing so. Thank you for practicing and resting with me today in this session. My hope for you is that you feel safe, connected, and at home in your body. If you'd like to join me for one collective breath, wherever you are, I invite you to empty your air and breathe in deeply through the nose. Thank you.